Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I will be ranking Psycho from worst to first. There isn't many films in this franchise, but it's definitely one of the hardest for me to rank. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let the show begin. Number 5 is Psycho 4. Released in 1990 and directed by Mick Garris, Psycho 4 would be the only installment not to get a theatrical release. I still watch Part 4 at least once a year, and just because it's last on my list doesn't mean I don't like it. There's a lot I enjoy about this one. I like the opening where Norman calls the radio station to claim he will kill his wife because she's pregnant with his child, and he's afraid the child will inherit his sickness. Perkins isn't a huge part of the movie, but nails it every time. And while on air, Perkins starts to recount old memories, and we begin to get flashback sequences where Henry Thomas plays a young Norman Bates. I think he does a fine job. And Olivia Hussey plays Norma Bates. She does a good job as well. I love the look of the film for a TV movie. It's really great looking. There are a few key scenes with the young Norman and his mother around the midway point of the film that are just awkward to watch. But all in all, a pretty decent sequel. Number 4, Psycho Remake. Made in 1998 and directed by Gus Van Sant, fresh off his big hit movie Good Will Hunting, Psycho Remake was supposed to be a can't-miss hit, especially backed by a budget of $60 million. But it flopped and flopped hard. Critics hated it, and box office drawings were extremely disappointing. But for me, I think it's visually stunning. The only issue is the shot-for-shot, almost identical ripoff of the original. They could have definitely added something different to spice it up a bit. And for some people, the casting of Vince Vaughn as Norman is a little odd. But at this point, he wasn't the funny guy we know him to be now. There was a movie he was in called Clay Pigeons, and it was released before Psycho. Look at this picture. Look at the captions here below. I'm convinced he was given the role because of his performance in Clay Pigeons. If you haven't seen this movie, go check it out. It's a great little hidden gem. But in Psycho, I thought Vince Vaughn was decent. But what I enjoy most of all are all the cameos by actors who could pretty much be stars in their own movies. So many great actors, visually stunning, just not too inventive. Number 3 is Psycho, the 1960 original classic. I usually don't watch movies before the 70s, but for Hitchcock I make an exception. I love his movies, my favorite being Rear Window, another brilliant film that influenced films like Brian De Palma's Body Double and Disturbia. But back to Psycho. This was an absolute game changer. That shower scene was one of the biggest shock twists in movie history, and it was 20 minutes in. Usually we get that big twist at the end of a film. Hitchcock also wasn't happy with the moviegoers back then. A lot of people would buy a ticket halfway into a film or leave early. He wanted to ensure everyone would be there from start to finish, so tickets weren't sold for shows once the picture had already started. What a classic. Anthony Perkins in his defining role is iconic. The setting with the motel and the house on top of the hill is equally iconic. Just a great film all around. Number 2 is Psycho Part 3. Made in 1986 and directed by Perkins himself, this installment is excellent. The mood and atmosphere are on point. I love the opening and the opening music title sequence. And Jeff Fahey is a very underrated actor. Always enjoy his movies. It was also reported that sometime during the production of this film is where Perkins contracted the HIV virus and would later pass away from the illness. This film is just so much fun, and the only reason it's not number 1 is because of some of the goofy moments. Like when Norman puts a body in the ice box and the cop later opens it up, doesn't see the body, and proceeds to eat the ice cubes with blood on it. But still one of my favorite sequels ever. Absolutely love this film. Number 1 is Psycho Part 2. Released in 1983, a whole 23 years after the original, this sequel really delivers. In my opinion, one of the best sequels ever made. It's got the perfect blend of 80s slasher and 60s suspense. Richard Franklin's direction is heavily influenced by Hitchcock, but he makes it his own. Anthony Perkins doesn't miss a beat. After 23 years, in fact, he's even better. It was reported that Perkins didn't care for Meg Tilly and was rough on her throughout the production, but she pulled through and did a fine job. Once again, great atmosphere, more suspenseful than Part 3. Love the uneasy feeling when Meg Tilly spends the first night alone with Norman in the house. Love watching Perkins' performance in Psycho Part 2. For me, it's the best in the series. Anyways, guys, so that's the list. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.